write bullet points, but I can't just sit down and write my speech out. It doesn't work that way for me. And being in Toastmasters for years, it wasn't until like later on in the process that I discovered that, boy, I suck at sitting there writing stuff because I'm such a perfectionist. Now, if I write out topics that I want to talk about, I can do that all day long and go from there. But if I had to, like, again, you'll tell me the topic. I don't write anything down. I just like, okay, I think it's stuff in my life, and then we just go.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing's written. No, I may have certain notes that I may want to talk about, but I don't. Again, I didn't know that I was gonna sit and talk about, one of my past companies with one of my, past employees. That's just natural stuff that just pops up. But if I'd had any of that written down, we wouldn't have ever gotten to that. You know what I mean?
Right.
So one of the things, like I said, what I do with my son is I'll intentionally mistake a word or I won't say it just to see if he's paying attention and he'll catch me. Like, nope, go back, say that again, and then I'll re-say it. Nope, and I'll go back a couple of sentences down, do it again. See if he's paying attention. Nope, go back. What's that word? And that's what he's saying to me.
Yep.
And I started noticing that when I was teaching him when I was teaching him his alphabet. I was like, dude, if I teach you, it's one thing, but if you teach me, you'll know it. So that's what I started doing. And then he improved drastically. So I hear what you're saying on that with with making a mistake on purpose.
Mm-hmm.
Just to see if somebody catches it and says something. To your Grant Cardone's book, he was talking about that too. He said, there's all kind of mistakes all through that book. He said, I don't give a shit. Did you buy it?
Right.
Did you learn anything from what I said to you? We could talk about my mistakes all day long, but I produced the book. I wrote the book. I produced it. I put it out and I sold it. What are you out here doing? You read it. Now are you going to do anything with it? Right.
Right.
I mean, and that's kind of, so that's kind of where I'm at with. Hold on. Sorry about that. But that's kind of that's where I'm at with that. That was just a point that you made that I just kind of thought about. I'm like, yeah, that makes a lot of sense because I do that with my son when I do it on purpose. And then a couple times, he called me where I didn't do it on purpose, and he actually caught me. And I was like, bro, I'm not gonna lie to you, that's kind of embarrassing. You know what I'm saying? I think he was 11 or 12 at that time. So, well, he's still 12, but I mean, that was kind of embarrassing. Not gonna lie to you, but I'm okay being called out by my kid. That doesn't bother me. So I'm okay with that.
Well, and I think it's being comfortable with that call out. My daughter calls me out all the time because she's smarter than I am, and so
right.
And so I'm used to it, and my son will call me out on stuff, and so you kind of get used to it. You learn how to humble yourself, especially as an entrepreneur. There are people that really get locked into how amazing and how knowledgeable they are, but they never take time to think about what they don't know. And that's a trap you can fall into when you stop learning as a business owner. That's where your business stalls.
Yeah, it's called a saturation point.
Right. And it's being cognizant of that. Like, I'm reaching my saturation point. Sometimes I got to find a way to wring my brain out so I can absorb more. One of the things is, and we touched on a little bit, we had some questions regarding it. How do we make this transition? What does it look like? And part of it is coming up with a plan. Like, if you are really serious about it, because there's two things I need to throw out to preface all this. One, being an entrepreneur can be a lonely existence, just because a lot of the people that are still doing the full-time working stuff, some of the conversations you have, they haven't even thought about. And so you're talking about what life is like on Jupiter, and they've never left Earth. And so a lot of times it can be I'm not going to say lonely, but it can be isolating, because a lot of times people that are still working will not be able to identify with what you say as a business owner, because it's a different perspective.
No.
And stilling yourself with that and understanding that there is a separation that comes. So with the planning piece of it, and we could talk, I'm not going to go all the way into it, but stacking your cash, making sure your money's coming in, and you have your savings set up and your emergency fund set up and all the other stuff on top of having a business that's generating money and is paying you on a monthly basis, is paying you and is paying itself. Okay. But stacking that cash is important, right? Making sure you're getting the right contacts, getting into the networking places, getting into the networking groups so that you can be around other business owners. That's important. You may not even have to say anything, but being in these networking groups where you're around to hear how business owners talk, how they perceive the world, it will do a lot for you. And so if you're working full time, take your lunch break, take an extended lunch break, find a networking group, go sit down and listen and even share what you're doing. You can soak up so much game from that, and it can change. It could tilt your perspective a little bit. And that's what Fearless helps you do, is reframe, a forceful reframe of your perspective. But this is something else that will provide a forceful reframe of your perspective, being around business owners and listening to them. But
your environment's everything.
Right. So stacking the cash, getting all the contacts, getting your contract set up, figuring out what this looks like, and figuring out, okay, so I'm going to go full time on that. What does that actually mean? Because for a lot of times you think, well, full time with my business now, full time means 8-hour days. Nope. Sometimes with your business, a full time commitment might be you're trading your 8-hour days at your regular job for 16-hour days working for yourself. And you got to square yourself with that.
Right.
You got to be able to be comfortable doing that. So there's the mental side of it, but then the physical side of it is money, making sure all the other cash flow stuff is set up and writing it down and making sure that this is what you're getting yourself into, because the pivot away from a 9-to-5 can be jarring. Especially if this is not a world that you've ever explored before. And so you have to mentally get yourself ready for that stuff and physically get yourself ready for that. That is the transition plan. So starting to figure out what your life, envisioning what your life looks like. And then once you get into it, then you start figuring out, okay, so now that I'm doing this, I'm doing the 16-hour days, what do I want my life to look like? That's the creative tension that we talked about from Peter Senge in the 5th discipline. The creative tension is what your life is versus what you want it to look like. And the gap in between is creative tension. So,
so something I'm kind of looking at now or whatever, it's kind of like the point of like the queen bee, right? You know what I'm saying? Like the hive within itself it lives for the queen, right? Mm-hmm. It dies for the queen. It does everything for the queen. And I liken that to working for other people years ago. Thank you. I liken that to working for other people because we are huge when it comes to doing all this stuff for other people, but we don't do the same thing for ourselves. Yep. And getting away from that hive mind type of mentality, that shit sucks. And that's really hard to maneuver that. And I think that's where a lot of us are, is that we're so passionate about working and doing our jobs for other people. But when it comes to keeping that same energy for yourself, we don't do it. Mm-hmm. Or we find it hard to do that. So shifting that hive mind to from outside of you to inside of you, that's like the hardest thing that I've seen that people have had to do. So there was another question from my buddy Tommy from the Rice Bowl. He asked me like a while ago. So he said, how do you juggle multiple businesses while staying effective as a leader? I'll let you take that one and then I'll go after.
So because I'm actually living that life right now.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. You go first.
Yeah. So for me, it's really allocating my time. Like I had to sit down and go at my calendar and say, okay, on this day I'm doing this, on this day I'm doing this. This is my day to work on my tasks related to this specific business. That is not easy. And optimally, I wouldn't be doing that. But I got multiple people depending on me for different aspects of this business thing. So really sitting down and allocating my time on the front end and saying, okay, so Wednesdays is when I work on video and marketing work for CMA. Okay. On Tuesdays is my I Sell Words day. On Fridays, this is when I'm doing this, and I'm doing client work for X, Y, and Z, and really dedicating those blocks of times to each day and not deviating from that, because that's the discipline piece. A lot of times, and Fearless, you can attest to this because you've been in that boss's seat before. One of the things that we encounter as business owners, especially when you have staff that work with you, you have to be comfortable telling your staff, okay, so this felt like an emergency to you, but this is not a priority for me.
Mm-hmm.
Because you have the capability of fixing this on your own. So if I was there, what would you do? So like say, leak spraying in the gym, right? If I had somebody calling me and saying, hey, what would you do? We have a leak spray, from the gym. So what am I supposed to do about it?
Mm-hmm.
Call a plumber, put a bucket under it. You know what I'm saying? That's what I would do if I was in your situation. Mm-hmm. This is not necessarily a priority. I'll see you when I get there.
Right.
And so, especially when you have that kind of stuff, it is, I'm going into the weeds here, but when I was,
go ahead, man, go.
When I was managing my shelter,
it ain't just me doing it. It's not just me. Brian does it too, ma'am.
When I was managing my shelter, one of the things I was big on was, I had my shelter and I was the director and I had 2 managers underneath me. Okay. One of the things for me was I want to teach my managers how to do most of my job. I'm teaching them how to do most of my job so that when I need them to step into the role of me, they can effectively do it. And so when you have staff, you have multiple businesses, you got multiple priorities, really identifying your staff that have the bandwidth and capacity and the mental fortitude to learn more and take on more of what your responsibilities are on a day-to-day basis so that it can operate this without you. Mm-hmm. And it allows you to focus on the higher end of stuff, which is finding new business opportunities. Hey, I need to open up a second location, or we need to buy somebody out. These are the things that are the high level kind of things that you need to be in on. But the day-to-day operations, finding that staff and identifying that staff that can learn 2 levels up. I was big about teaching my frontline staff 2 levels above their job. So I wanted my frontline staff to have the competence of my managers and my managers to have my level of competence in most things. And I was not scared to admit that piece of it. And I wasn't scared that they were going to replace me or find somebody better, because there were certain things that I could do and certain outcomes I could create that they may not have the skill or experience to create. And that's fine. But finding that person that can absorb more and giving them the opportunity to take over more and not just letting them be comfortable sitting and doing where they're at currently. So for multiple businesses, I would find my 1 or 2 people that can take on more and incentivize them and put it on their plate. The other side is they have to be motivated by that, because some people, they just want the paycheck. Other people, the paycheck is nice, but they want to learn more. They're trying to grow through the organization, grow through the business. Identify those people that want to grow through the business and use that as a teaching thing to incentivize them. Hey, these are the things I do. The last piece, when your staff screws up, and they will, when you delegate on this level, when they screw up, when you sit down and talk to them and debrief on them, don't beat them over the head with the screw up. Find out what their thought process was. Figure out what their thought processes was. Because if you can identify what their thought process was, I used to tell my staff all the time, as long as you could tell me I may not agree with the actions you took, but as long as you could tell me what your thought process was, what you were thinking, and the thought process makes sense to me, I'm going to back you up on it. Mm-hmm. And that's what delegating on that level means. So the way they do it may look different than what I do it, but if it makes sense to them and they've actually put thought into what they're doing, I support him on it as long as it's not detrimental to what we're trying to do as a business.
Mhm. I agree. I think that if I were to answer that question, I would probably answer it the same way. Um, Tommy, I personally, I guess there's what, one, two, three. So here's the thing: there's two businesses for the most part that I actually run. The one that we're doing right now, like coaching, and this is like more of like it's more of like a passion. Um, it's like a passion more than a hobby or whatever. But like doing what we're doing right now, again, this is the same thing. We're building something off of this platform, off of the education that we bring to people, right, or the value that we bring. So um, I can't say that with what I do, I could actually have somebody come in and I can delegate that to another person. I couldn't do that. So with what I do, it affords me the time and the space to be able to kind of come and go as I please, to do what I need to do, and then to I think that's about it. I mean, I can't delegate this to other people. You know what I mean? I have to be there for this, and then once it's over, then that's it. Um, so I can't. I guess I really can't answer that question. You can, because you have money coming in from all these other things. The money that I have coming in from other stuff or whatever, it's all in the same thing. Now Tommy does the restaurant. He also does stuff in real estate. So he is like diversified all over the place.
Let's go.
I'm not like him at all. My bandwidth don't go that way. Like I can only focus on one or two things, and they have to be in the same arena.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Even with my job being a shared living provider, and then working, doing community inclusion, stuff like that, that is all based on, like, that is your own company, like in general. But that's all inclusive in the coaching part. Again, this is all within the same ballpark. So everything I do is right here. You know what I mean? Like nothing is like over here, then I got this thing over there, then I got this other stuff over here. I don't do that. Everything I do is within my ecosystem, but that's me. Like, so, I mean, you can answer this one because you're all over the place with that shit.
Yeah.
I am not. And you got ADD, which is even crazier.
Well, and that's it's kind of the salve from an ADD is being able to pivot on high level tasks, and it keeps me from getting caught up in bullshit. One question real quick. So you've said community inclusion twice. What is community inclusion?
Audience. So it's like when you work with some people with like disabilities and stuff like that, and instead of them going to a workshop or like a day center, they're just with you. So you guys basically do the same thing. You're just not doing it from a workshop standpoint. They're with you. You go out, you go do your stuff, and then you come back and like do whatever. So it's basically like a workshop within you. So we go out, we go bowling, we go to movies, we go anything that you would think that day centers will go do, we go do the same thing. We just do it together. Okay. So that's what community inclusion is. Plus, I have a young man, or I guess we're the same age, that lives in my home, and I get paid for him as well. So again, like that's. But again, the coaching aspect of what I do has nothing to do with this. But to me, it's all in the same.
Got it.
It's all in the same field. So now, if I were to enter real estate, if I were in to real estate as well, then that'd be something different. Then I can answer his question, but I can't really answer that because I don't do that. You know what I'm saying? So but that's just me. But like I said, I know you do. That's why I asked you that question. You know what I'm saying? So yeah.
And I got one more thing that's on my plate. I can't go into all the details now. I think I've talked to you. I can't go into the details of what it is because a lot of stuff ain't finalized yet. But I'm going to be in the position where I'm going to actually have a team, and I'm be doing a lot of like managing remotely and stuff. And so that's gonna add a new wrinkle to what we got rolling here. But I mean, I got to sit down and write out a handbook and figure out, what I need my sales guys to be able to do and stuff like that. And, my thing is when it comes to sales, I want killers. I want people that go out there. I want sharks. I want people that are hungry for the sale. And so I got to figure out what that actually looks like from that standpoint. And so I'll be announcing some stuff here, in the next couple of weeks, but this is kind of a big one. From the business standpoint, I run a consulting business. And so a lot of my stuff is the consulting side of it. My pivot, and I'm talking about it openly. Last week we talked about the pivot. My pivot was I was trying to pivot away from the done for you services because there's a ceiling that you hit right there without hiring other people. And I kind of lost the other half of my agency when my wife went back to corporate side of things. And so I had to make a pivot and say, okay, I have the bandwidth, the capacity, and knowledge to teach people what I know. And I have a background in, being a social worker and working with families in their darkest parts, and also developing employees to do the same job. And so those are the skill sets I have, in addition to being able to do digital marketing and writing and all the other stuff that comes along with it. And so I have a consulting business, and that is my business. It's I Sell Words. And I have a program called the Unstuck Sessions, and I've tested it out. We launched it about almost a year and a half ago, but I'm dusting off some of the aspects of it. And it is where we sit down and you come to me with a problem that you're trying to scale your business past, and we have a sticking points meeting. We figure out what's the sticking point here and how do we navigate around it and get to the next sticking point. So it's great for people that are just starting out, but it's also great for people that are new to a specific problem and they need somebody on the outside to help them navigate past that. And so it encompasses marketing, it encompasses employee management and scaling a business. And so that's my lane. And so that's what I do. And so you see Brian hosts the Unstuck Sessions. That's part of my business. And so that's what I have available. And Fearless and I are working on stuff together too. And so, we're ready to roll it out. We're going to sit down and talk to you all about it too. But the reality is I have the ability with ADHD, I have a really strong ability to compartmentalize things. Not everybody has that. I could say, this is what I'm on right now. And if I give any focus to any of this other stuff, then I'm down that rabbit hole. And
see, when I do the same thing, I'm an asshole. But okay, go ahead.
Well, it's I sit there like, okay, if I go off on this tangent, if I go off on this thing while I'm working on this, then my work on this is shot. And so that's how I keep locked in and managing it's going to be soon to be three separate businesses. And one of the businesses is a partnership. So my partner handles a lot of the training and stuff. I do the marketing, website design, all the other messaging stuff. That's me and the business side of things. So one of the businesses is a partnership. So I have a great business partner who's amazing with the sales side of stuff and can handle some of the training side of it. So it takes some off my plate. So it's more like 1.5 businesses. And then I'm going to be adding 2. So it'll be, it's going to be 2.5 businesses essentially.
Yeah. The way that I look at that is that if I haven't made anything from anything, I don't even consider it a business. You know what I'm saying? I mean, that's just me though. Like if it hasn't made me anything, I don't consider it a business. If it does not make at least, I would say at least, I don't know. Matter of fact, how about we use that? The thing that the IRS uses, which they don't use, 5,000. I think it's way under that. But if it doesn't make at least, let's say $7,000 a year, to me, it's not even a business or whatever. So, but that's just me. But here's the other question that Tommy had, which is, what's the biggest lesson you've learned from failure, and how did it shape your success?
For me, so it leans into what you just said, because before I pivoted I Sell Words, we had and I told Fearless this off air. And it was a confidence thing. The last time I asked for $40,000 from a client, I got $40,000 from a client. That's with iSellWords.
Mm-hmm.
The problem with that was, and this is something I should have learned, was I took that money and it was like, okay, me and my wife working on it. I probably should have I should have outsourced a lot of other stuff. And we did a lot of it in-house to allow us to continue to take on other clients, because that one client took up all of our time. And when we reached the end of our services with that client, I instantly had to hit the ground and go find another client. And it was the entire thing was so overall traumatizing. And then now I was doing a lot of it like, okay, I got to do some of this, I got to do some of this on my own and stuff. That was a mistake by not delegating, not outsourcing, and then also allowing that to hurt my confidence to the point where I didn't go out and just find a $80,000 client. Because normally that's what I should have done. I should have gone out.
Yeah.
I should have landed that $40,000 contract. And then I should have said, okay, so this is ending. I need to go find an $80,000 one. And I did not have the fortitude at that point. I was so shook, to be honest with you, after dealing with that I didn't go out and pursue. And instantly I said, I don't even know if I want to do this anymore. And so that's where I landed. And a lot of it came from allowing myself to get burnt out and not delegating the way I need to delegate and outsource a lot of my services. And
so do you think that, not to interrupt you, but do you think that maybe it's because you didn't set boundaries before?
100%.
You know what I'm saying? Because that kind of sounds like what that is that you neglected to set boundaries before y'all even got started.
100%.
So then you can't, you have to, now you're locked in to all this other stuff. And again, all of your bandwidth is on this 40,000, as opposed to, like Grant Cardone says, you don't got, no, we're not going to do all this. Find other people that can do at least most of this while you go out there and go fill that pipeline with a few more of these 40,000s. Then you can start focusing on all that other stuff. Is that what you're talking about?
And that's exactly what it was, because I turned into I can do that. Yeah, we could do that, because I know how to do it. And so when you have a lot of different things you know how to do, it's really easy to turn into I can do that, I can do that, I can do that, I can do that person. And as opposed to saying, this is going to cost extra. This is going to cost more. This is outside the scope outside the scope of our contract. I was so locked into, okay, let's build goodwill and turn this into a recurring thing, that I didn't go out and find other avenues and outsource it, because a lot of that stuff I could have outsourced. I could have easily hired somebody on Fiverr or something to do some of this stuff and take it off our plates. But I turned into let's do it in-house. And so what happened was I had an entire plan laid out, but I got so sucked into, I can do that, I can do that, I can do that, I can do that, that the business plan, the marketing plan I had established and the one I was following ended up going by the wayside while I got caught up on all these other menial tasks that I should have outsourced for. So that's the lesson I've learned, is delegate, outsource. The stuff I learned back when I was running my shelter still applies to the business world. If I don't have to do it, if I don't have to touch it, if it doesn't require my specific expertise, I need to find somebody else to do it. Because there's a time thing to it where I have a specific number of hours within the day, because I was also still managing the other side of my other business while I'm doing that. And so by taking this on, it was essentially taking on a full-time job that I didn't have to. And so what I should have done was taken that job and said, okay, now I need to find the people to deliver this creative content. And all I need to do is just check over it to make sure it's right and send it on. And that's what I should have done. But we were so like, okay, let's just get it done. We got to prove it and blah, blah, blah. And I really didn't have shit to prove, to be honest with you, because I had done all this stuff before and I had amazing outcomes from other businesses before. And I've been making my money before all that with this. But I'm like, I got to prove it and all this other stuff. And I didn't have anything to prove.
Right.
Because after I signed the contract, my proof is over. I'm already locked in. I don't have to
Right.
prove anything to anybody. But my mental place, I wasn't in that. I wasn't in, I was like, oh, I got to get this done. I got to show that I can do this. I got to show my artistry. I got to show how creative I am, as opposed to hiring somebody else to do it. So that was the biggest lesson, is whenever you can, as soon as you can, if you have the resources, delegate that task to somebody else and
Okay.
manage it. Because the other side is, and this is the other side I got into it with staff, is delegating doesn't mean I drop this water bottle in your lap and walk away. Delegating is, here's a task. I need to explain how it gets done and what the outcomes need to be, and when I need it done and what my time frame is. I give it to you, and then if you don't understand it by the time I walk away, that's a failure on my part. I need to stay there and explain it till you get it. And then
Right.
I need to come back, circle back, and check up and see if you need anything for me to do. Because my job as the leader is remove the obstacles out of your way so that you can be successful. And
Mhm.
so that's the piece that a lot of people screw up on with the delegation side of it, is I delegated this to you. I dropped this in your lap, but I never follow up. And I never followed up to make sure you understood what I was saying in the first place.
Right.
That's my part.
Okay. Well, so I think for mine, so as most of us know that I own a co-owner of a bookstore. The one thing that that I'm starting to truly understand is that I don't want to own a bookstore. It's not really my thing, and it wasn't really even about that until I was talking to my friend again, and she was like, "Dude, that was never really your thing. Your thing was always coaching, training, consulting, stuff like that. That's ever since I met you, that's kind of what we talked about. The bookstore thing was just kind of a if it happens, it happens. If it don't, it don't type thing. And I love to read, like love reading. But the one thing that I started to understand is that like I can still love reading. As you can see, all my books, and that's just some of the books that I actually have. But I think understanding what it is about the books that I love, which is to read them. I don't even like selling books. Like seriously, like we would have customers come up and they would put the books on the counter. And I'm like, damn, if I'd have known that that book was here, you wouldn't be buying it because it would be at my house right now. You know what I mean? So I just say it's almost like a weed head working at a weed store. You know what I'm saying? Who actually has access to all this stuff. And it's like, you know what? I probably shouldn't be working here. I should probably be doing something else. Right. And again, I love the experience of the bookstore. I love the experience of having a brick and mortar business. I mean, you've been to my store. I mean, it was absolutely beautiful. And I think that now I'm just, doing more coaching, consulting, stuff like that. Like, I'm not gonna lie to you, bro. Like, that's where my love is. That's where my passion is. And the bookstore within itself, like, I'm kind of cool. Like, I'll still pay the stuff that I need to pay, that I'm obligated to pay. But as far as anything else pertaining that, I can kind of care less one way or the other. But the greatest lessons I've learned from failure pertaining to success in general is understanding who and what you are.
Mhm.
And again, like I always say, you don't get what you want in life, you get who you are. And I love to read. That's not going to change. But it doesn't necessarily mean that I need to be a conveyor of selling those books. You know what I'm saying? I don't mind being a consumer. I'm fine being a consumer of books, right? That's my thing. I don't need to sell them, no. You see what I mean? But coaching, teaching, training, consulting, stuff like that, that's my thing. I would pay for that shit. Not only do I do it, but I would pay for it. That's how you and I met.
Right.
Well, not the first time, but second time, that's how we met, was based on that. So everything that I talk about is what I'm willing to do. I don't mind being at a bookstore when I do certain stuff. It just doesn't have to be my bookstore. I'm okay with me having a team of people that where our whole objective is to help other people outside of that, because not everybody's thing is to read, right? But I'm also a huge proponent of encouraging people to learn as much as you possibly can. And that doesn't always mean reading everything. Learn, you can learn from anything, right? And that's where I tell people that my channel, for the most part, is where perspective is everything. Perspective is everything, right? So it's based on how you observe it. How do you look at it? And, just like with you, there's certain questions that, like with your mom's passing, based on some of the stuff that you were doing, right? And again, depending on how old you are, I can kind of understand like where you are mentally when you're putting these things. And again, it's some stuff that you said, but it's also stuff that you didn't say that I also picked up on as well. So again, but that's my thing. Now, whether or not I'm talking to a book, somebody who loves to read books and stuff, that's cool. But I'm only going to get to talk to you for a couple minutes, and then you're going to bugger off. But coaching, teaching, consulting, shit like that, that's something that a person's going to be with you for years. You know what I mean? Like you and I, our relationship is going to consistently keep growing and flourishing and prospering. Whether we make money together or not, we still going to function with each other. You see what I'm saying?
Yep.
But then there's other individuals that as soon as this relationship has run its course, I wish you absolutely nothing but the best in life. I bid you adieu. You see what I'm saying?
Yep.
And that's how it has to be. And it's not a thing of being any hard feelings and shit. It's just that our relationship has run its course. Thank you, but I'm out.
Right.
That's it. So when I think about success, I think that you need to get your ass kicked. I think that you need to have your hat snatched and handed back to you. And I think that that's where you find success if you're listening to yourself. And I always tell people that talking to yourself doesn't make you crazy. Not listening to yourself will.
Right.
And I love reading. I love books, but it doesn't necessarily mean that I need to have a bookstore to do that. You know what I'm saying? Like, and not only that, but even when I thought about the bookstore within itself, one of the premises that I kind of came up with early on was, why don't we just sell books that we've actually read? I've read so many books, it's ridiculous. You see what I'm saying? I've like throughout my life, early 20s to I'm 46 years old now.
Mm-hmm.
I've literally read thousands of books. So why not? Right? Go ahead, my guy. You look like you're itching to say something.
I got an idea.
You see that, Jessica? How I stopped talking and I'm letting him go. Do you see that? Thank you, ma'am.
So I got an idea in line with that, and it's regarding some new information I came across. I've been hearing about it. We're going to talk about it off air because this one is good enough where I don't necessarily want to let this one out all the way yet.
Go ahead.
But this is specific to Fearless and what you just said regarding the passion side of things, plus only wanting to sell books that you've read. So this is a business model that something I've seen play out, and it's something that's kind of taking a lot of the social selling world by storm. So I'm going to run this down to you. We're going to stay on after so I can run this down to you.
Cool.
So let's talk about, because we talked about the scaling side of things and the growth side of things. Hiring. When it comes to hiring, if you read the E-Myth, one of the big things is, and I can attest to this, is write down everything you do on a day-to-day basis and make that the basis of your employee manual. And you must have an employee manual. You must have something for when you bring people into your business, because you have to lay out exactly how it's done if you want to keep fingers on it. But that's an aside. Where was I? We talked about cash flow to make sure the money keeps coming in. It's easier to retain a client than it is to get a new one. It's cheaper to retain a client than it is to get a new one. Y'all got to be aware of that stuff. That early sales and stuff is great, but does this person come back to you? If they come back to you, that's a sign that you got something a little bit more durable. And so a lot of times young businesses, they have somebody who's excited to do something, be with a new business and provide money to a new business, but once the newness wears off, they fade away. You want people that mess with you regardless, and sometimes even people that will stop messing with you but then see what you're actually doing and see the value of what you're doing and come back to you. Those are your most valuable clients. You need to find a way to keep them happy. That's early stage scaling stuff.
Right.
Identifying who your recurring clients are. Go ahead.
Right. So customer retention as opposed to acquisition.
Right.
It's kind of what we're after, is keeping the people that you already have as happy as possible. My son goes to a martial arts studio here in Bellevue, and that's one of the things that they do is they're big on customer acquisition. They're big on that. But the one thing that they're not so good at is customer retention. Mm-hmm. And when you sign these contracts, they think that, well, being that I signed this contract, we're good to go. No, you're not. Because what happens is that people, especially if they're under contract and they can't get out of it, they will go around and they will shit all over your name. There's been 4 or 5 families that have come to me and asked me, what do I think about this place? And I tell them the truth. I tell them, my son's been here. His confidence level has scaled through the roof. My son's a black belt now. So I've kind of taken the pressure off of him of, bringing home that black belt. He brought it home. So now it's more of getting his second degree so we could just be done with this thing in general, which is what he wants to do. Awesome. I support it. But I tell the families, I say, if you want to help your child build self-confidence, martial arts is a great place to start. But it's not really an investment for them that you're making. It's more of an investment for you that you're making. Because the money that you're going to be putting into this is crazy. Mm-hmm. It's crazy, the money that you're going to be putting into this. So as long as you're willing to make a 4 to 5 year commitment, then yeah, I'd suggest you do it. But if you're cool with letting your kid walk into stuff and walk out of it, this isn't it. And I mean, that's with anything. So it's not like I'm talking shit about, their thing or not, but, their dojo, I'm not. It's just a fact. But the other thing that kind of bothered me a little bit was that our bookstore has been around for just about 2 years now, right? Mm-hmm. Everybody at the place knows that, that we own a bookstore, which is probably 1 or 2, a couple miles away from the dojo. And the owners of the dojo have never been to the bookstore. Never. Not one time. And I was sitting there thinking about, and I thought about that. And again, it's not trying to be petty or nothing, but it's kind of like, I've put so much money in your pocket that is crazy, right? And we were always paying for this, paying for that. But yet instead, when do you ever come in? You ain't even got to buy nothing. Just come in and look at one of the things that the parents of your children that you're teaching or is doing for the community. You're not being a part of it. As a matter of fact, I've even told him on multiple occasions which books to give to children as they're coming in to getting a little older, getting a little wiser. Dude, I'm a certified life coach. Why the fuck wouldn't you listen to me? Like, I know what I'm talking about. Like, your wife has a Tesla because of me. I'm the one who sold her on that shit. And I barely even say anything to either one of y'all. So I'm like, y'all come to me and ask about this and the other. But when it comes to molding people's minds, I'm not the guy to do that. Like, you know what to do. And I mean, and I'll give you an example that you can relate to. In Boys Town, I was there, I was there 30 years, no, matter of fact, 33 years ago. 34. There's instructions. There's a system in following instructions. It is when you follow instructions, you look at the person, you say, okay, do the task immediately, and you check back. Now, I still remember that from 33 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
I still remember that shit because they drilled it into us. They got all this stuff that they got, all this stuff that they got. And I'm like, bro, they're not going to remember that shit in 33 years. They're not going to remember unless you got to talking about that every single day. Every single day. When you wake up, that's the first thing that pops into your head. That's when you'll think about it. That's when you'll know it. That Boy Sound shit became a part of me. You know what I'm saying? And I got kicked out within like a year and a half of me being there. I was expelled. You know how hard it is to get kicked out of Boy Sound? Dude, do you realize how difficult it is to get kicked out of there? They deal with the worst of the worst. So if I'm there and I got kicked out, that's the type of energy I was on. You know what I'm saying? So again, bro, like when it comes to karate and this and the other, he's gonna be amazing at that. He has all these belts that I ain't never even heard of. But when it comes to molding a person's mental capacity, bitch, I'm hit. Mm-hmm. Like you got a whole dinner out here, and you out here settling for crumbs and shit. Like, well, what is you talking about? Like, I mean, and again, I know that people should not, man, fuck that. Toot your own horn. Because that's, unfortunately, people don't do that. And I'll tell you, if you good at it, tell everybody how good you are. That's how I look at it. And I'm good at this shit. So if a person who doesn't even know me, let me rephrase that. If people that have never even met me are just handing me thousands upon thousands of dollars for my fucking perspective, then maybe you should listen. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. So that shit bothers me. I'm just saying to no end, like it does.
Well, and I think it is a matter of that it's transactional. Like the relationship is a transactional.
Very, very.
Because I know, like, I can shout out Chris and Sally with CNS heating and cooling. I've worked with them for years, and I will only recommend them when it comes to, if somebody needs their air conditioner replaced or their heater's acting up. I will only recommend Chris and Sally because of the level of service where when they come in, they're not trying to upsell you on stuff you don't need. Chris will look you in your face and say, yeah, they told you needed to pay all that. We can fix this. So you don't need to buy a whole new unit from them. Mm-hmm. Like honesty, transparency, to the point where it may even cost them money, but they want that level of honesty to make sure that you're not spending your money on stuff you don't need. And it's, there's a level of engagement that they have with you as somebody that you're hiring to do a job. And so I'll never recommend anybody else besides them. And that's the level of service that you build in that retains customers. And a lot of times businesses neglect that piece of it. They don't go the extra step to show the customers that they matter outside of the transaction that they receive from them. So you hand them the money and then that's it. And there's nothing else there.
Right. And that's all and that's kind of where I'm at with that. And again, like I said, is like I don't need your money. Mm-hmm. But support, especially if we're all in the same community, why not?
Right.
Why not function with me the same way that I function with you? I'm not telling you to come in, but again, again, to me, it's kind of like one of those things that when that hubris takes over, when it's like, nah, I know what I need to know. All right, cool. That's right. What's up. But all I'm saying is that when you're in the community, it has to be something more than that, because without us, you don't survive.
Right.
Like off top. And I think that once you forget that, I don't give a shit what kind of business you have. It's done. Right. There was this other business here in Bellevue. Diane Bruce, the president of Chamber of Commerce, will attest to this. There was this amazing barbecue spot, in Bellevue called Mission Barbecue.
I know what you're talking about.
Oh my God, their food was absolutely amazing. I've never had turkey like that. Never. 46 years of being on this earth, I've never had turkey as good as this man's food was. And apparently one drunk night, your boy gets on YouTube. No, he was on Facebook.
I saw that entire thing. That's the definition of Facebook. He crashed out.
He was on Facebook and my boy turned up. And when I tell you that he treated them people like a crash test dummy, he went in, no helmet, no condom, dead as shit. And by the time this man was done talking, did nobody else go back to his store? Nobody.
There's another side to it too, because not only was it the crash out, but I'm in another group with Omaha foodies or whatever, and he was actually harassing and sending messages to other barbecue chains and talking crap to them at all hours of the night too. It was crazy, and it was a completely self-inflicted wound that was completely unnecessary. That's completely unnecessary because he had the cachet, he had the reputation. People were locked into what he was providing, but it was a self-inflicted thing. It's what happens when you don't worry about your repeat customers. You don't worry about how you're presenting yourself. Are people going to want to continue to mess with me after this? Now, there's a level of defining your business. Like let's not get it twisted. There's a level of defining your business, right? And this is going to go into, like, next week we're going to be talking about marketing. But there's a level of defining your business where you define who your ideal clients are and who they are not. And you market to your ideal clients, and people that aren't within that ideal, if they want to mess with you, they'll adjust to be in that group of ideal clients. And then the people who aren't appropriate for your services, and no matter what you do, they're never going to be happy because they were never appropriate for your services from Jump Street. So that's one side of it. But the other side is going on a major crash out and alienating all of your clients. That's not advisable, and that's what happened. And the crazy part about social media is a gateway where you instantly have contact with billions of people at the same time, a potential unlimited number of people at the same time. Right now, we blast this on YouTube. At any given time, we could have billions of people watching it. We don't, but that's how it goes. And so the danger with social media for a lot of young business owners, like if you're just starting, if you're looking to pivot from the side hustle to the full-time job, is you can absolutely obliterate your business with one overly personal tweet or one overly personal post, or going on a drunken tirade on social media in front of God and everybody else. And so that's what happened. So bro had built up his client base and destroyed it within 5 or 10 minutes. But there was also other stuff going on with that piece of it. And it was detrimental to his business, and it was a solid business. So take it at what it is. So I'm going to move ahead a little bit. Making sure the cash flow comes back in. It's cheaper to retain clients to gain new ones. Setting your prices, the prices positioning conversation. And I even struggle with this sometimes, just because, and I've had, multi-$1,000 days and stuff like that, but it's something that I even struggle with occasionally. Setting your price at a point that allows you to continue to do more business is important. And a lot of times, if your service is so good, the price becomes immaterial if what you provide is that good, or somebody wants it enough. And for new business owners, that's a piece that they struggle with. And like I said, I've even struggled with it, and I've had $40,000 days. So setting your price is a key consideration, especially when you're starting out, especially when you're looking at moving from the side hustle to the full-time business, because just because you're making a full-time income in a part-time basis doesn't mean that you're going to double that income when you go full-time. You're going to have to scale up you're going to have to scale up. You might have to evaluate what your prices are. And considering the fact that we're going to be in this protracted trade war, if your business requires materials, you have to build that into the cost of what you're charging customers. And everything goes into, all your overhead goes into the price of what you're charging customers. All your maintenance goes into what you're charging customers. And so a lot of the pricing stuff is important to get a firm grasp on when you're looking from pivoting from a part-time thing to a full-time thing, because going full-time will not automatically double your income.
Gotcha.
So that's what it is. I was continuing on with the entire crash out about Mission Barbecue, bro.
No, I heard you.
It was astonishing to watch, and anyway.
Yeah, I know. I wasn't there, but like I did actually go back and read some of the stuff. But I also remember because he was talking to Sarah Milligan, who they own. What do they own? They own, man, what is that store? Dip Cravers.
Dip Cravers, yeah.
Dip Cravers. And apparently he said something. I guess Matt was talking to him, and then he said something about Sarah that pissed Matt off, and then they just kind of started going back and forth with it. And I was just like, dude, like Sarah's like mad cool. Right. And like every time I would go up there, Sarah would be there. You know what I'm saying? So like I know for a fact that, you know, that she was that she, you know, bought into their food, that she did this and the other. It's like, dude, you know, like that's kind of like, why would you shit on the hand that feeds you? You know what I mean? Especially somebody who's actually that really messes with you and who's just trying to help.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? I mean, and I was talking to Diane about the same thing. It's like, dude, like they didn't have a phone, they didn't have this, they didn't have that. It's like, dude, like, bro, people want your stuff, people want your food, but there's no way to get a hold of you. And like, I mean, it was just a lot of like, I'm like, man, like, which is crazy to me, because to me that basically shows like you can have the, like I said before, you can have the greatest product, you can have the greatest service, but no, you can have the greatest product, but if your service or your customer service sucks, dude, I don't give a shit how good you are, bro. That is going to kill a lot of your business.
Yep.
It's going to kill. Here's the thing, and Diane and I were just joking about it. We were saying that even if the business was, that like his customer service was horrible, I was like, can you talk shit to me after you give me my food?
Right.
I'm saying, let me get my food first, and you can say whatever you got to say.
Yeah. And that's how I feel like ain't nobody's. Here's my thing, and this is just me as a business owner who's also a consumer. Ain't nobody's food good enough to take your abuse. I got a smoker in my backyard.
Right.
I can throw anything on that smoker and it'll come out amazing. And I don't have, what is it? Black Thought said this: just because somebody gives you shit doesn't mean you have to take it.
That part.
Nobody's food or nobody's product or service is good enough for me to come in and feel like I'm being talked down to or insulted or belittled or anything, man. I'll go somewhere else, or I'll go create the experience on my own. And sometimes a business can have success despite itself, despite its worst impulses. They can still have success, and that's an enviable position to be in, where your business is so rock solid. Your demand is so rock solid that people will put up with anything, but they won't put up with anything indefinitely. And so you got to tighten that up. And so it's unfortunate. And you never want to see somebody go out of business. And I've seen businesses do that. You never want to see that happen. But when you're crashing out on social media and basically telling thousands of people, well, you don't ever have to come to my restaurant again, they're going to say, all right, bet.
Say less, cousin.
Yeah.
All right. I won't be back. No problem, sir.
And that's crazy, because I've done marketing for restaurants, and restaurants are one of the hardest things to maintain. Even if you're doing great, even if your clients love you, even if your customers, you have huge lines and everything, you could still go out of business, because all it takes is some small permutation in, you buying the food, sourcing the food, somebody's price gets raised, it could throw everything out of whack. And so when you have one that's making money like that, it's crazy where it's successful for all those years. It seems to be hubris to do all that stuff. But that hey, like I said, I don't know, bro. Personally, I just saw what happened on social media, and it was wild.
Yeah, yeah, it was. Yes, it was. But man, then that's one of those trial and errors. Hopefully, he comes back. Hopefully, with a better attitude than what he had before, and we can hopefully kind of do something with it. But if he doesn't, then he doesn't. And you know what? Eventually, somebody's going to come and have some really good food, and homeboy just going to lose out on that shit, bro.
Yep, that's what happens. So, all right. So we've gone through a lot of.
Oh my God, yeah, we got stuff to kind of do over here. So
we gone through a lot of. That's what I was about. We're wrapping up now. So we appreciate y'all that have tuned in. Next week we're going to be back here at 10:30. We're going to be talking about marketing stuff. And a lot of it has to do with marketing for businesses that are getting started, but also you're going to get insights from us about marketing. And so that's what we're going to have on next week's stream. Tune in, be editing this one up. So you're going to see clips of it all across social media, but we're always here to ask questions. So hit us up on Facebook or whatever. So I'm wrapping it up. I'm hustling through. I'm Brian.
Fearless here.
Talk to y'all later. Peace.
Deuces.